All right. So how do you feel about the moves Russia and Cuba are making on the dollar? Great question again. I think these are interesting times we living in. I mean, here's what I do know. All fiat currencies have died, right? Every single one of them. Every single one of them. The reason these stories are interesting to me is because people have this like this feeling that because things are what they were, they'll always be that way, and they don't study history. All you have to do is study history. Empires have fallen, currencies have just vanished. It's what happens. So I'm glad people are getting to see in real time. Like everything doesn't happen overnight, but over time things happen. So I think these are just interesting times we're living in, and those conversations are crazy.
So, and I want to add on, right? So, because the United States dollar was the reserve currency of a lot of the world through the petrodollar, right? Because what happened was when Saudi Arabia decided to use the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency to buy oil, it turned the dollar into the reserve currency of the world. And so, when when that happened, the thing that the U.S. did to a lot of countries is use sanctions because our currency was the reserve currency, and so a lot of the other countries in the world had to had to be sort of afraid of the U.S. dollar failing. They had to see the U.S. succeed because it was the reserve currency. Now they don't have that issue anymore. Two things happened over the last few years: cryptocurrency and COVID. And once these countries saw that they didn't have to use the US dollar as a reserve currency, they don't really like us. They only used us because they had to, right? And so that's another thing. And then they don't have to worry about economic sanctions from the US because who the hell they going to sanction if we ain't using the currency?
All right. So you got anything else you want to say about it?
Yeah. The last thing I want to say about that is because what these countries are doing, and what oh man, what was the country that just did it? They gave out the $30 in Bitcoin, whatever that country was.
El Salvador.
El Salvador. So what El Salvador did, right, and what a lot of these Central American countries are doing is they're going to cryptocurrency as their native currency so that they can get away from U.S. economic sanctions, right? So you know what I mean, like because what happened is we wrecked the economies of Venezuela and all of these Central American countries, and what they're doing is stabilizing their economies using cryptocurrencies. And so, you know what I mean? Because what it does is help with the rapid inflation. That's one of the things that's keeping inflation down here. Actually, cryptocurrencies are helping keeping inflation down here. So, you know what I mean? For those people who hate cryptocurrencies, you know what I mean? You better be glad that they exist because if they didn't, inflate. If you think inflation high now, you wouldn't have no clue how high it could get.
Man, inflation is high right now. Inflation is ridiculous right now. I know because I've been in the house. I've been back outside. Everything costs more. It costs more just to breathe these days. But with that being said, though, there's a great book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, which will tell you about how we wrecked other countries' economies, sometimes
Man.
for political reasons. So here's another great question from Lou. Why they murked that McAfee guy? The hell was up? Listen, McAfee allegedly committed suicide, although his last statement that he made was, "I'm not suicidal." You know what I mean? Like if something happens to me, I'm not suicidal. For that to be your last message and then you commit suicide is kind of crazy. Um, and you know, another thing that's crazy about it is like most people don't even know who John McAfee is, but we all know his product because it pops up on the screen of our computers all the time. Um, and he was a radical. He's a crypto guy, but he had a lot of thoughts about a lot of things, and a lot of folks wanted him
And
out
he
of
had
it.
a lot of information about a lot of things. It's okay to have those thoughts without the information. He had a lot of information about a lot of things, which is why they was on his top.
But he's no longer with us. Rest in power to John McAfee. Uh, but that is very, very suspicious. I'll just leave it at that because I know them folks is probably watching. I already know they on my phone, but it is what it is. You know, I'm just out here. You know, I'm just out here trying to help the people. But anyway, Egan says, "What's your take on the current crypto price drop overall?" Um, don't really have a take on a current price drop because to me, everything's up. I don't look at things like, yo, it was 60, so now it's 30. I look at things like, yo, it was 2000 and it's at 30, right? This is part of the game. When you get into this space and you play this space to be long term, you know that it has its peaks and valleys, and you also know that because it's not regulated like other markets, that you have a lot of manipulation and a lot of things going on. That's one of the reasons why I like to hang around chart folks. I'm not a chart guy, but if you know a lot of chart people, I ask them to look at the charts and they can tell me things before it happens. So a lot of times you get a lot of FUD in the news about this is going to happen or China's banning this or this is going on. And a lot of that stuff is just FUD. It has nothing really to do with what's going on. And I know that because my chart folks told me what was going to happen 2 weeks prior. I mean, Jose's in the comments. He's a chart guy. You can look at the chart on, Ethereum or Bitcoin and know what's going to happen before it actually does happen. So when you hear people try to blame it on the story or Elon, like the Elon thing was the funniest one. The Elon tanked Bitcoin. No, he didn't. We literally had that in writing. And shout out to everybody in DCG because DCG has the monthly report. July is about to drop. It was in writing.
Report when they was going to drop some stupid news to try to make the prices drop.
And so it was like, but I don't really like pay attention to it that way. Actually, for me, it's like, got a question today from someone about like a bear market. What if we're going into a bear market? And I'm like, I'm excited if that's the case because now it's time. It's time for accumulation. I consider myself a stacker, and that comes from my mentality of being in precious metals. I'm stacking, so therefore I look forward to times like this. Shout out to me.